رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Myself, Maryam Khan, Jazakallahu khairan Nasiba for the introduction. And Jazakallahu khair for having me here and giving me this opportunity to share something. And it's a very interesting topic. I had a lot of, uh, what is the right word? I think challenge to research on this topic. And inshallah, whatever I have done, I have tried to do my best, and inshallah, it will be of help. So, of course, this session will be interactive, and I will not bore you by a monologue. So, please feel free to use the chat box as much as possible, and inshallah, we'll begin. So, just a conscious intention and a conscious bismillah, and revising our intention for why we are here, and making a very strong intention with regards to our purpose of being here, and a prayer that may Allah Ta'ala make this time sacred for us, and grant us the correct understanding and the basira to implement this in our lives in the best way possible. Just a few reminders, if it is possible for you, then keep a book and a pen with you. There will not be much writing to do, but just to keep your focus. If you are on possibly a laptop, then it is a good thing. But if you can close the other tabs so that you are not distracted again and again, because your attention is priceless. And secondly, that everything and anything that you're going to be sharing here is going to be an amana, and it won't be shared with anybody else whatsoever. And you can share whatever you feel so that we all can learn from your experiences and your thoughts, inshallah. And there was uh, the agenda for today, which Sister Nasiba has already explained to us, that what is going to be discussed today, all about the psychology of attraction, the triggers behind innocent conversations, how to distinguish between boundaries and emotional vulnerability, and then understanding all about desire, love, lust, and attachment from an Islamic lens. So before we begin, I just have a short disclaimer that because this topic is kind of a very relevant topic, but also very taboo topic. So if you feel that you are going to be not comfortable in sharing with such details, it's absolutely fine. However, if you feel more comfortable to rename yourself and just put a random name, and if that makes you comfortable, your Zoom names you can edit. If that is something that is allowing, you have the permission to do it from the Zoom account. However, if you're not comfortable to share, there is no force. But because we are initiating a conversation on such a topic which is so relevant and yet not discussed in a way it should be discussed, because the age we are living in is not the same that it was a few years back. And there will be many things that are going to come out, which we are going to discuss very openly, because it is essential that these topics are spoken about and spoken about in the right way, so that we are able to learn from it and implement it in our lives, inshallah. So with that, we can begin. And please continue to use the chat box, because I need to know if I am making sense to you or not. So with that, let us begin. Okay, so what is love?
When someone cares about others,
When someone cares about others. Okay. Then we have Noor Jahan saying being there for each other. And we have Farha saying Love is connection, love is warmth, respect, attention, kindness, patience. Varisha is typing when someone cares about others. Okay. Anything more? Okay, so and what is attraction? But I saying love is intimacy, love is passion, love is commitment. Okay, okay. Now, my second question is what is attraction? Guys, I- spark, physical pull. Para is saying that. Okay. Zubia is saying attraction is feeling drawn towards someone. Okay. Manha is saying when you get attracted to someone because you feel something for someone. Okay. Cool. These are very nice answers. And I'm sure those who are not typing have better answers to give me. Many types of attraction are there. Having feelings for other or something, something clingy. Okay, amazing. Attraction is when you find someone or something really interesting and want to get to know them better. Okay. Farha is also saying that attraction and love are not the same. Okay, amazing, amazing. So, we have a lot of understanding about love. People understand love very differently uh, because it's such an abstract concept, and yet it is such a timeless concept that everybody feels it, but they cannot understand it if they feel what they feel is love or it is something else. So, there is so many answers that are coming up, and we have some amazing answers that the chat box also is right now showing. And because love is such a complicated sort of a concept that if somebody asks you that is love a desire or is love an emotion or is love a feeling or is it a thought? What is it? Zubia is saying it is an emotion. Okay. Saira is saying it is a feeling. Okay. But I'm saying it is a combination of all. Okay. All of the above options. Okay. Or is it more? Is it desire? Is it emotion? Is it feeling? Is it thought? Or is it more? It's something more than this? Or it's very complicated. It's Arshay is saying it's emotion and it's action. So we can see, right, that no one person has a single fixed definition or a fixed idea. As many people are there, perhaps there are as many definitions of this concept, and that is what makes it so interesting that we all feel it, and yet to describe it, it becomes so difficult. And now we will see why, right? Quite complicated to put into words. Exactly, Aisha. It's pretty complicated. And when we are now going to get into the details of it, we'll understand why it is so complicated. Okay. So now I have made it more complicated for you and to shock you, and now to scare you that this is some sort of a science class that you have come into. But this is just to get you going into the science aspect. And don't worry, I'm not going to make you learn all this like schools you make you learn it. This is just to show that when a brain, for that matter, because we are going to start with the scientific aspect, when the brain is actually feeling this particular love, which for simplicity's sake, we can call it emotion, but of course, it's a very, very complicated concept. But for the sake of this session, let us call it an emotion, although emotion and feelings and desire, they all have nuance and the definitions are different. But just to keep it simple, we'll call as an emotion. And when you see this brain, and I was like, wow, uh, the biology is so interesting to study, and you will see it now why that a brain in love is absolutely fascinating because our brains are created with so much precision and perfection. And there are so many parts in our brain. All of you who are not in science, are not from science background. Don't worry, I am also not from a science background. So if I use any term that is very difficult and you cannot make sense, just type it in the chat and I'll clarify. And for those who of you who are from a science background and I make a mistake, you can correct me. Absolutely, please correct me. Okay. So this is just a snapshot of a brain in love, and there are different parts that you can see that is highlighted, and all are working in such precision throughout the day, throughout different emotions. But when it comes to love, which we are going to see, that we have made to believe that love is such a, it's such a uh, um, emotional kind of a thing that we are made to forget the biology, and somehow the biology is much more powerful than what all we have been taught by the media, so to say. And then now we are going to get going that what exactly is happening in this entire process of love. And as I was asking initially, that, what is love and what is attraction and what is, you know, the concept of love and why it is so complicated. It was only to understand that uh, uh, although we might confuse one with other, but there is a deep science behind each of those stages. And this anatomy of love that you are seeing on the screen is created by Dr. Helen Fisher, who is was actually an anthropologist. So they are people who study about humans, and they do it from an evolutionary perspective. So we, as Muslims, obviously do not believe in evolution, but we will accept the biology aspect as long as it does not contradict our beliefs. And biology does have some roots in anthropology because it is coming from that belief system and theory. However, just to give you a disclaimer that everything we study about this, we will take it from a pinch of salt because it has anthropological roots. So they believe in things which we are not really, uh, as Muslims, we don't believe with. So that is just a disclaimer. So you're seeing on screen, what you're seeing on screen is, Dr. Helen has divided uh, a brain in love, and she says that uh, although these are not exactly phases, however, in the leftmost column, you can see that she says that it happens in three ways. They may be in sequence or they may not be. However, for the sake of simplicity, we'll assume that these are just uh, different concepts, and they may or may not be exactly the gospel truth, so to say. We will only accept what we can accept as Muslims. So, what happens is that the concept of lust, right? So, they say that we have this innate need to pass on our genes, which is called the libido. And this is the innate drive that humans have been given. And that is the reason that uh, uh, through ages, we have been passing on our genes to people. And it is because of this innate drive that we get attracted to people. And it is what makes us pass our genes and reproduce and, continue our progeny. And now each of these phases, uh, you will see the brain chemicals that get active. So in the second most column from the left, which are the brain chemicals that are most operating in these particular phases? So when we get attracted to someone, what are the brain areas? What are the brain chemicals? Then what function do these brain chemicals perform? Then which brain region gets active? Then what is the function of that particular brain region? And when that happens, what is actually happening in our brain? So this is how it is divided. And I'm going to go very slow so that even those who are not from a science background can get a little hold. And don't worry if you don't get it, we will simplify it more in the coming slides. So there are some key hormones that are active in those stages, which makes us physically attract to people when we see them. And then certain brain regions of our body gets activated, which is hypothalamus. I will just use these terms here and there, but don't worry if it is getting too complicated. I'll simplify. And then that particular brain region, it is responsible to regulate our body and bring our bodies in a sense of balance. So now that particular brain region, what it does is it gives us heightened sexual craving, physical attraction, and reproductive motivation. So this is all you can see that these terms are very like, in the animal kingdom, we must have learned that how they operate. And because this particular theory has evolutionary roots, these kind of terminologies are also appearing over here. So we get attracted and certain brain regions get active. And because of that, there is this lust produced, which is absolutely physical and absolute physical attraction. Then she speaks about romantic attraction. Romantic attraction. Now, this is like, we were talking about attraction, that getting attracted to someone, and what is that? Now, again, some brain chemicals in our body are getting activated, and the primary ones are dopamine and the ones that are listed. I'll not take those names, it is very complicated to pronounce. However, we will focus on dopamine because dopamine is that brain chemical that is associated with rewards and pleasure. So it is like anything that gives us pleasure or the anticipation of doing a particular activity is pleasurable. So the dopamine centers of our brain gets activated. Whatever
Yeah,
pleasurable activity you can. Sorry, is somebody saying something?
yeah,
So the reward center or the dopamine center gets activated in this, and there are some other chemicals that associate with excitement and stuff that also is activated in this particular phase. So when we are so excited and the expectation of pleasure, that again is associated on with a certain brain region that is which I showed in the previous slide. It is VTA, ventral tegmental area. Ignore the technicality. What it does is it gives this intense pleasure, right? And there are other regions as well that is operating at the same time because brain is not going to, stop uh, work only in sections. So other areas are also working. Maybe they are underworking or maybe they are overworking. So in the attraction phase, we see that there is this intense pleasure because, okay, there is going to be a reward. So that area is over functioning. But there is also an area which you can see in green, which is the PFC, which is the prefrontal cortex, which is the front area of our brains, which is responsible for judgment. It is under functioning. So when our dopamine regions are over functioning, our judgment reasons areas are under functioning. And then what happens that when I am, or when somebody is in absolutely attracted to someone, there is this emotional high. There is uh, so much attraction and so much pleasure from the expectation of being with that person that our judgment area underfunctions. And we have seen this happening around us. And we must have seen this happening, and we notice that why is this person behaving as if they have lost their brain? Because they have. Because the prefrontal area, the area which is actually responsible for judgment and decision making and rational thinking, does not work as efficiently when the dopamine centers are ignited and alive and chasing something which is so pleasurable. And it leads to obsession, it leads to exhilaration, emotional high, and irrational thinking. Am I making sense, or have I made this very complicated? Please let me know so that I can go ahead or I can repeat whatever I have said. Is it making sense? Okay, only Aisha has understood. Can I go ahead? Okay, thank you. Now, we often hear that there is, this saying that, oh, I'm sorry. I get so attached to them. And, what is this attachment? And I'm so attached to this person. I'm so attached to this person. So this is the third phase, right? And this now we are going to understand from a biological perspective. In this phase, there are certain brain chemicals that are activated, which is responsible for bonding, which is responsible for loyalty. That is another chemical, and trust. So I want to bond with someone, and I want to connect with someone, and I want to spend establish a long time relationship with someone. So now again, these chemicals, our brain regions are getting activated in the hypothalamus, again, the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus. These are all some again, some complicated terminology. Don't worry if you're not understanding. But now this particular attachment, what it wants is it wants a long-term connection. And you want to have a very, very long-term lifetime relationship with this person. And that is why what happens is when we actually attach to someone, the expectation is there will be emotional security, deep trust, long-term connection, and sense of home. Because attachment is supposed to feel safe. However, it is a different topic that when people actually fall in love and they become obsessed and they get unhealthily attached, and it doesn't feel like home, it feels like hell. And we will understand that why that happens. So does that make sense? Does this slide make sense? Even if you don't understand the terminology, forget it. It's fine. Sister Nasiba is very kind. She has listed them. But I'll just repeat the basics again. So we have lust, which is the physical aspect, the absolute physical attraction. We have romantic attraction, which is the emotional aspect. So my dopamine and my reward center, I have this intense pleasure and attraction towards someone, and I'm getting obsessed with them. I can't stop thinking about them, and I want to see their stories and see their DPs and see what they are doing with their lives and whether they are replying to my messages. I have totally, totally been overcome. And then there is this attachment where I feel that, my life is nothing without this person. And our prefrontal area, this area, it underfunctions when our dopamine area is overfunctioning. And we will simplify that further. Just putting if nobody understood anything, we'll just simplify it more, that what is actually happening in the brain. So just to make it very, very, very simple, we have certain area of the brain that is responsible for decision making, and we have certain area of the brain that is processing emotions. Now, all the phases that we saw in the earlier slide, the brain regions responsible for that, guess in which of these centers are they located? Is it center A or is it center B? Make a wild guess. It's B, right? Because there is emotional exhilaration, there is so much emotions involved. My obsession is increasing and my reward center is over functioning. And because my emotional center is over functioning, my rational decision making center will under function. So A and B have a inverse relationship. Does that make sense? So if I am emotionally overwhelmed, my decisions are not going to be very nice. And that is why we are not supposed to make decisions when we are emotionally charged, right? So these centers have an inverse relationship. And that is why that when somebody falls in love, and especially uh, young people, which normally people say that I don't understand why is he this person doing all this, and uh, the person is saying, but no, everything is fair in love. No, everything is not fair in love. Our brain is making us feel that because the brain has stopped working, the decision making center is no more functional as it should be. And that is why we end up saying things like, oh, everything is fair in love. Really? Is it? Does this make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the confirmation. Okay. So now the question comes is that if it is so biological, and if there is so much biology involved, and normally when we speak with teenagers or youth or with anybody who is actually involved or is not able to understand their emotions, and they are just attracted, and when we try to explain to them that it is not healthy or it is not good for you, and they're not understanding because their emotional centers are overpowering, and then they start assuming that you know she's telling me, or my mother is telling me, or my sister is telling me, or my friend is telling me, but it's an emotion, so I can feel what I can feel. So if Islam is telling me not to feel what to feel, then is why is Islam so anti-love? I can't even love who I like. I can't do that. And these kind of thoughts, we especially we get to hear from teens, and many of us perhaps who when we were teens we had these thoughts that why every time they say that don't go, don't talk to this person, don't talk to this guy, don't reply to him, don't message him, but we are just friends, why I can't talk, he's just a classmate, why are you so anti friendships, mummy? Why? Just because you are religious does not mean that, everybody is anti-religious. And we start having our own assumptions in our brain that she is practicing and she is stopping me from having a conversation with opposite gender. So somehow her beliefs are not getting aligned with love. And so is Islam really anti-love, right? And we get these questions in different way and formats. And the answer to that is that every emotion is created by Allah Ta'ala. Every emotion, and that includes love. And everything that Allah Ta'ala has created has a purpose. So by nature, no emotion can be good or bad. The entire logic lies in the fact that what we are doing with that emotion and how are we channeling it. And especially in youth, when our prefrontal cortex is not developed, especially in teenagers, when our brain is developing, there are a lot of processes happening. And when we hit puberty, the hypothalamus that I said about, that maintains balance in the body, it starts communicating with the body about the sexual needs, right? So we have this puberty which hits us. And at that time, we have these emotions coming in as well. But at that time, also, my prefrontal cortex is not developed. So at that time, when a teen or a youth or anybody for that matter starts assuming and believing that their feelings are actually uh, or their emotions are something that they should act upon, this is where the problem begins. Because we are making decisions from a place of emotions and not from a place of rationalization. And what makes an emotion good or bad is the intensity. If it is extremely intense, whether it is even happiness, if it becomes intense, and if we end up crossing the boundaries of Allah Ta'ala, happiness is no more a good emotion. And on the flip side, if we see anger, and if anger is coming from a place where we see somebody violating the boundaries of Allah Ta'ala and we feel angry about it, it is a good anger, it is a praiseworthy anger. But if I channel it by breaking things and by screaming and by giving silent treatment and by slamming the door, then it becomes a problem. So it is always the intensity which will decide whether an emotion is healthy or not. And if acting upon it will be for our good or for our bad. And if we analyze the current era, all of us probably use social media a lot, and we are very connected with what is happening. And if we see the kind of reels, the kind of music, the kind of series, the kind of post, everything, it is continuously being designed to incite us and to make us act upon our feelings. So it is the era of feelings worship. You feel this, you do this. You feel so, you do so. You feel so, so it is right. Nobody is allowed to question how you feel. You do you. And when we are constantly fed with this idea that your feelings are supposed to be acted upon, it leads us to go towards instant gratification. That, I feel like eating this, whether it is unhealthy, I don't care. I want this right now. Here is the Zomato more. So this continuously being fed upon to feed our feelings, what it is doing is it is corrupting our fitra. Our fitra is the innate predisposition that Allah Ta'ala has created in us, and it is pure. But being constantly fed upon that, oh, it's okay to like someone. Why don't you go tell him? It's okay, your feelings are valid. Oh, it's okay, what the most is going to happen. And what more they are feeding it with is, for example, if you are somebody who has heard music in the past, or you come across some lyrics, you will notice that there is a trend in music and lyrics where they purposely use terms of shirk. Is that something that you have noticed? I have noticed it from where I belong. I belong from the Desi community, India, Pakistan, and the lyrics that here I have heard in the past in my days of Jahiliyyah. And I continue to, when I see someone's reels, they start using this, and I go and check the lyrics. And by default, I'll find something that is very, very problematic and very, very shirk oriented. Your beloved is your God. Prostrate to your beloved. This and that. I can do the Hindi also, and it'll make more sense to the Desi people. But there is this uh, constantly being fed with that, and it corrupts our fitra. It corrupts us because it feeds those feelings that are there, and then we act upon those feelings, and no more our decision making capacity is working, and it is just a slippery slope from there. So what happened? He followed me, so I followed him back. And then I'm reacting on his messages, reacting on his reels, and laughing, sending emojis. Then I started replying. Then we started doing voice notes. Then it came to calls. But we are only friends. We only meet with other people when they are present. And then we start meeting alone. And then everything becomes fair, right? We know where that leads to. Because when we start gratifying our feelings, there is no end to it, is there? A reward center, a dopamine center that is so overpowering the decision making aspect, even the things that we know are not good for us start appearing as it is very good for us. Does this make sense? Any thoughts, any comments? The chat box is yours, people. Okay, thank you. Now, uh, you know, observing what we have observed, going through what we must have gone through in the past, or people who deal with, such issues on a daily basis, they see this so often happening. And then there are these questions coming in that, is Islam anti-love? Are we not even allowed to love? Uh, am I supposed to just kill everything, every feeling that I have? If it is stopping us from using our brains, then yes, it needs to be channelized in the right way. Because for us as Muslims, anything that stops us from using our prefrontal cortex is problematic, even if it is food. When we eat too much sugar we, or very heavy food, we have this brain fog, and we are not even able to concentrate on our work, and we are just sitting there on the screen scrolling our emails, not doing justice to the salary we are getting. It is problematic. So with regards to that kind of love that is so passionate that it makes us forget everything, that it makes us obsess over something so much so that we forget the boundaries between right and wrong, that is a psychological sickness. That is a sickness because it corrupts. It corrupts our hearts, it corrupts our souls. And how does that happen? Ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullah alayhi writes, passionate love is the fundament that makes the soul desire that which would harm it. Similar is the one weak of body who desires that which harms it. And if he is not satiated by that, if he is not satisfied by that, then he is grieved. And if he is satisfied, then his sickness increases. Passionate love contains a corruption, the extent of which none can assess except the Lord of the servants. It is a sickness that corrupts the religion and objectives of the one who possesses it. Then it corrupts the intelligence and then his body. And we must have seen this happening in real life, don't we? The intelligence does get corrupted. The biology now is a proof that Imam Ibn Taymiyyah wrote 1,000 years back. I mean, that is the power of our religion. We don't need the validation of science, but still, it makes more sense, right? And then it corrupts the religion because when we are obsessed, when our hearts are obsessed, and when we start feeding that by lyrics where shirk is promoted, what is going to happen with our hearts? What is going to happen with the religion? I mean, we are going to take this heart only to Allah Ta'ala, right? And if an emotion which we are being made to believe that, oh, in love is everything is fair in love. Really? So the question now arises that is why is our soul desiring that what is harmful for it? Right? Is that a question that is coming or I'm just throwing it at you? Right? Why do you think? Like why our souls want that which harms it? It sounds contradictory, right? Why do I want something that is not beneficial for me? What do you think? Why do we want it? Guys, any comments, any feedback, any reflections? Why? Any idea is fine, right? You can give your own reflections, what you have observed, what you think. It's okay. All answers are valid. Come on, because it makes us feel good, right? We have a brain center and it thrives on reward and pleasure, and that pleasure has no end. And we are not thinking rationally, right? Because our brain and prefrontal cortex, this part is not functioning very nicely. So it's not able to decide what is actually beneficial and what is not. Any more answers, or can I reveal the answers? And how almost overtake it. Yeah, yeah. We start believing that every feeling needs to be acted upon. So this is just some of the reasons. There could be more reasons, but these are just some that I have listed, and inshallah we'll go through this. That why does the soul wants what harms, what it, which is absolutely not beneficial for it, but it still wants it and it acts upon it. Why is it happening? So on the left hand side, we'll discuss four aspects from the Islamic tradition, but of course, psychology is not different from Islam as such. But just concept wise, I have divided it into two sections. And inshallah, we'll discuss one by one each, right? So on the left hand side, we have nafs. So there is nafs, nafs ammara bisu, which is the commanding soul. So we have nafs ammara, nafs lawama, and nafs mutmainna, right? So the first one is nafse ammara, which is, is the one that incites desires in us. And the Quran mentions it that, indeed the soul is a persistent enjoiner of evil. So persistently, there is a nafs that is inciting us towards things that are not beneficial. It can be anything. It can be a person, it can be food, it can be action, it can be not doing things that you should be doing. It can be anything. That is one. Second thing that you can see is, as Aisha also mentioned, that Shaitan is operating with us, right? Constantly 24 by 7, putting thoughts and waswas in our minds day in and day out. And it says in the Quran that Shaitan made a promise to Allah Ta'ala that till the end of time, till humanity exists, I am going to mislead humans. I will arouse in them sinful desires and I will command them so they will change the creation of Allah. So this is the fitrah that we were discussing earlier. So what he does is he puts thoughts in our hearts, and then to act upon those thoughts is something that we will take accountability for. But what, because the strategy of Shaitan is so precise that even if we know that something is not beneficial, what we do is we rationalize. Oh, he's just a cousin. Oh, but he's a non-mahram. No, no, he is just a cousin. And we are only talking. I only chat with that person. There is no problem in talking. Where is it written that you cannot talk on chat? I am such a responsible person. I will never go on this path. I am only being nice to him. So we have this justification and rationalization of our actions that are happening because of the waswas of shaitan, so that we can act upon our feelings without any accountability whatsoever. However, the accountability is going to be there, but because the brain is not functioning as it should be, we are rationalizing that, oh, it's okay. What's the big deal? He is not going to break my heart. He's a very nice person. I'm sure he's going to marry me. Oh, others are like that. He is not like others. He is different. He respects me. Nobody before this respected me. So somehow it is rational to talk to him. And this is what Shaitan did with Adam alayhi salam, rationalizing the disobedience of Allah Ta'ala. When he said to eat from the tree, how strategically he misled, how strategically he planned. And we should deep dive into that, kissa, into that story, because that has everything that we need for the lessons that we need to protect ourselves, actually. And then the third one that is written is the haram has been made very attractive. So we have that hadith where Jibreel alayhi salam was shown heaven, and when he was shown hell, and he said that, that heaven is surrounded by so much difficulty. How is anybody going to enter it? And hell is surrounded by so much desires. How is anybody going to avoid it? And that is the nature of this dunya, that the haram attracts. And I mean, if we label something haram, we are no one to label. It has already been given to us what is halal and what is not halal. However, just for a second, if we imagine that, talking to the opposite gender, being with the opposite gender, dating, all this is not haram. For example, just hypothetically, will it appear as exciting and as enticing anymore? Not being allowed to do something, not being allowed to eat this particular food makes that food much attractive. Even the things that, are not really that tasty. If my dietitian tells me, Maryam, don't eat this, I am going to be tempted to eat this for no reason whatsoever. I'm like, why? Why did she tell me not to eat it? Now I want to eat it. And that is the nature of everything that is haram. that it is enticing. Does this make sense? Does the left side make sense? Can I move to the right side, or do you have any questions? Yes, no, maybe. Okay. So on the right side, we have the psychological reasons. So from a psychological perspective, so let us start from the last. It says repetition compulsion. People unconsciously repeat harmful patterns from childhood or trauma, hoping to resolve them. So some of them, they have very difficult households, or they have very difficult childhood, or they have some trauma that has not been resolved, you know. So this is all from a psychological perspective. So we will take it with a pinch of salt, uh, because it does not apply to everybody. It is obviously not a generalization, but it happens. So we cannot discount that as well. That, somehow we keep on repeating, back to back going, unconsciously, chasing for people one after the other, somehow in the hope that what trauma I am holding is going to be resolved by this next person. Somehow that neglect that I have had, or that abuse that I have had in the childhood, somehow it will be restored in the future. Somehow this person will not let me down. Many have let me down. My own family has let me down, but somehow this person is going to be different. So we try to resolve so much pain that we are holding from unhealthy means by chasing one person after the other. The next is self-destructive ideation, meaning feelings of guilt, worthlessness, or a desire for control can make people act against their own well-being. So let's say, for example, somebody has been made to feel very worthless, that, you're very worthless, and you're not this, and you're not that, and you don't have any value. So there could be a chance that these people start believing some things about themselves and about others which are not true. But for them to cope with such strong emotions, they develop these ideas that, for example, somebody told them something, and that made them realize that their worth lies only in being with some person. So everybody around me has a boyfriend, so to say, and my worth is somehow getting challenged because I am alone, and I don't have anybody. So it means that I'm not very attractive, and I'm not very good looking, and I'm not very valuable, and I'm not very worthy. So somehow I need to have somebody so that I can, protect myself from being feeling so shameful. So I'll indulge in actions even though they are, I know somewhere deep down that it is not right, but somehow I don't want to feel so worthless again. So rather than getting uh, those feelings resolved through healthy means, we end up going the wrong way. The next one is pleasure versus pain loop, which is the reward systems in the brain, especially dopamine, which we saw, are wired to chase pleasure, even if it comes with pain later. I know eating so much ice cream is not good, and I'm going to feel extremely bad after I have eaten it. But let me finish this box. Let me just finish this box. And I know this person is, he treats me like trash. But he also, gives me so much euphoria and happiness. And He gives me so much, and he takes me out on dates, and he makes me feel so, gives me so much attention, and makes me feel like a center of attraction. So let me just do it, whatever he's saying, and then I will deal with all the painful feelings later. Oh, so what? He's abusive, but he also gives me so much attention. You see, we because the brain wants to stay in balance, the pleasure chasing will always come with a pain loop. When we chase pleasure, there will always be pain. That is how the brain maintains balance. From a biological perspective, you can deep down the study of dopamine and you will understand this loop better. And that is why people, get addicted, whether it is substance, whether it is behaviors. And that is why people cannot leave toxic relationships because the reward center of the brain is compromised. And it happens with addiction cases as well. And the last one is, which we said in the Islamic perspective as well, the cognitive dissonance, which actually is a fancy term, but it means sometimes people hold conflicting beliefs or values. They may desire something which is very risky behavior, even though they know it is harmful. Their brains work overtime to rationalize it. Can you see the similarity between the Islamic perspective and the psychological perspective? They just gave us fancy names, right? Psychology just gave us fancy names to what is already written for us. So I know something is not true, but I'm going to rationalize it and I'm going to do the risky behavior, even though I know it is harmful, even though I know that, this is not supposed to be done. But the risky behavior, which is also a feature of when we study about teenage brain, they say that the risky behavior tendency goes up. It is for all that reason that in teenage, the parts of the brain that are not developed, or the parts of the brain that are developing, and the ones that controls risky behavior has not developed as much as it should have, and that is why all the risk taking behavior comes. And the truth of the matter is many of the adults don't have a fully developed brain, and that is why we see adults doing all these things. Does this make sense, people, or have I complicated things? Please let me know. Yes. Okay. Alhamdulillah. So now the question is that the soul wants what harms it. Yes, there is a biology operating. Yes, there are factors operating that wants me to go the wrong way. Yes, the world is increasingly being designed for me to follow my feelings, to follow my desires, to act upon it, to not use my rational thinking, to justify everything and anything that I am doing. But we as Muslims and we as people who are sitting here and listening, we know that that is not right. And there needs to be a solution, a absolutely perfect solution for us to develop that kind of resilience against all these forces. Because the world is going to increasingly being designed to chase pleasure. That is not no more a secret. We are increasingly going to be made to feel as if instant gratification is the purpose of life. And if we are not doing it, we are backwards. That is going to happen more as time passes by because we are living in the era of deception where the right is wrong and the wrong is right. And the prefrontal cortex is perhaps compromised even for the most adults and uh, the most mature people, so to say. So the hearts needs to be protected, and it needs to be created and strengthened. And we were talking about attachment, right? So my question to you is that after listening everything, right, till what we have discussed now, what do you think is the solution? How can we actually, like, no philosophical answers. What we think can actually be the one true solution for this kind of a heavy loaded concern? What will protect our hearts from these kind of influences? Where the solution is, what the solution is. Because for we might have heard from, from here and there that, lower your gaze, right? Or don't speak to the opposite gender in a voice that is not appropriate. Don't mix with the opposite gender, whether digitally or otherwise. We have heard, but somehow it if we were teens, if in our days of jahiliyyah, we did not believe it. But after going through this lecture, inshallah, if now we are in a better position to make sense that everything that we had been told had such big wisdom, such big protection. It was not that Islam wanted to, no, it wanted for us to stop us from loving. It wanted that we stop from ourselves from destroying ourselves. Because we are going to be pulled on the day of judgment by holding this area, right? The prefrontal cortex, we are going to be pulled from this area. If anything is compromising this, we need solid restrictions, because there is so many factors operating to pull us away, to to put us on the wrong way, that if those restrictions are not present, our ever after, our infinite life is going to be compromised, and that is not a very healthy bargain, is it? So when we say that, these are the psychological reasons and these are the Islamic reasons, we need to work if we have any of these prevalent in us. If we have trauma, which is making us do it, if we have feelings of worthlessness, there are counseling, there are coaching, there are therapy that is available for us to break these patterns, to come out of what is not beneficial for us, to work on ourselves enough so that we can, inshallah, develop the resilience and then make our hearts only for that for which it was created, which is the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything or anyone that takes away the center of our hearts is toxic, is problematic, and is going to destroy us. The heart was created only to worship Allah Ta'ala, and the center belongs to Allah Ta'ala. Attachment belongs to Allah Ta'ala. We can healthily depend on humans. We are not exactly should be attaching ourselves to humans, because humans are fallible. They will make mistakes, they will disappoint us, and our hearts are not supposed to forget that the priority is Allah Ta'ala. And when we give this space to anyone or anything other than Allah Ta'ala, we will be humiliated by that very thing. If we give it to a person, we will be humiliated by that person. If we give it to our jobs, we will be humiliated by our jobs. If we give it to some other thing, we will be humiliated by it. So that Allah Ta'ala brings us back to the right way, that you placed somebody else above me, see the consequence. So I know this is hard concept, and I'm trying to make sense of this concept. And I think entire life is going to be spent in understanding and implementing this. That how to healthily depend on others and not attach to others, so to say, and how to make our hearts purely only for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a very difficult thing to do, but it is why we are here. It is why we are placed on this earth to prove whether we do the right thing and we protect ourselves from the wrong. So, a few things before we wrap up. I think the solutions we already know. I don't think I can bring anything new that you don't already know. The Quran, the Sunnah, everything has given us the guidelines. Uh, our entire efforts should be to understand that what is stopping me to not act upon those guidelines and reduce the gap between what I know and what I'm supposed to do. Because we know a lot of things, but we are not able to act on those things. And it is because of various reasons. And that is what we need to identify and reduce this gap. And that can, inshallah, happen by these things that some of them I have listed. Some of them you already know. Some of them you can give it in the chat box. Uh, so just to list a few, find our own vulnerability, because Shaitan is going to attack us from the areas that are vulnerable. So he knows us, he flows in our blood, he knows us better than we know ourselves, unfortunately. And the psychology of Shaitan, it's something that you should study. Psychology of sins. It's an absolutely interesting topic to study. And how Shaitan makes us uh, go on the wrong way from the very area that are vulnerable. For each person, it is very different, and he knows it. So, how to find our vulnerability and how to strengthen it is one. Second is filtering the sensory input. So, the biological aspect that we were studying, right? So, there is, of course, we did not have much time, so I did not cover it in detail. But there are research studies that are existing that says that, how somebody gets attracted to someone. So they list physicality, which is what you see, the voice, the pitch of the voice depends on how attracted you get to someone. The smell, how that person smells, it decides. And of course, there is the touching and those kind of research as well existing. And we did not need research to prove Quran. Quran is independent of science. Quran is the source of science, because the source of all knowledge is Quran. So again, we knew all this, but now perhaps it makes more sense, because somehow we are people who have become in need of science to make sense of Quran, unfortunately. But inshallah, that will change. Inshallah. So all these, subconscious and conscious aspect of each, that, if I am listening to music and it is, no, that is another point. I'm sorry. If I'm speaking to someone and I'm being very friendly with them, it's not okay. It's just not okay. All these sensory inputs are going to ignite my vulnerabilities, and those vulnerabilities will be exploited by Shaitan. Is somebody speaking?
मदद से।
Saiba, can you put somebody on mute? I don't know if. Okay, so we have third is choosing your environment. So if you hang out with people who talk about boys and the only conversation they have is series and Korean boys and characters from the novels who are boys and men and talking about things that ignite the desires that were supposed to be channeled and protected. Choose your environment, people, especially if there are young people who are go to universities, colleges. We are living in a time where we have to, before you start studying, choose your environment. The studies can come later. Who you hang out with is going to determine a lot of this. If everybody in your circle is dating someone, it will become because the peer pressure is going to get overpowering. The brain is developing, the prefrontal cortex is not working. We might slip, and we should not underestimate that potential. Choose your environment. If we are listening to music, music is haram, there is no doubt about it. But uh, especially with those lyrics, that is obscene, that is shirk oriented, that is just distracting us and making us heedless, igniting desires in us. We have to choose our environment. There is, of course, repentance, which is continuously needs to be done so that we are able to see the things for what they are and we are not blinded by our emotions. There is fearing Allah Ta'ala because when we are being placed in a world that is desensitizing us from sins, that is desensitizing us from the impact that even a small action can have, that is desensitizing us and igniting us to put music even on WhatsApp stories, it is going to be a lot difficult to fear Allah Ta'ala. And we need to find out strategies to restore that fear in it. And then perhaps throughout our lives, learning to love Allah Ta'ala the way He is supposed to be loved, doing what He wants us to do and not doing what He does not want us to do, which is for our own good, I mean. And then, of course, last but not the least, making consistent dua to protect our hearts from all spiritual diseases, including passionate love, and to fill our hearts with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and attach our hearts to Him and Him only. With that, we come to the end of the session. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Any doubts, any questions, clarification? Did something not make sense? Walillahi alhamdu biya. Thank you for coming in. Thank you, Amtul. Jazakallah khair for joining. No doubts, no questions, no reflections. You can send a private message if sending in the group is not comfortable. You can DM me on Zoom. Yes, it is not completely related, but there are roots coming in because a lot of studies are coming from an anthropological sense where they believe in evolution. We don't believe in evolution. So with that perspective, I said that, we will take everything that science gives with a pinch of salt uh, and not consider it as the gospel truth. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not from a science background, so I've tried to do as much as I could. Um, and this is why I asked Nasiba for some more time to prepare for this session because I wanted to do it and understand so much science because I have always been a commerce person. So I hope this helped. Oh my God, this is a very difficult question, Noja. I wish I could answer it. I mean, it depends on the age actually, right? Uh, so all the brain chemicals that we have been studying about or reading about, all of those can be generated by healthy ways. There are activities that can be done, sunlight, for example. There are new experiences, learning something new, social bonding and connection with the right people. Like releasing all these brain chemicals can be done in a healthy way because these are chemicals, our brain needs it. And if we don't have it in the right doses, we start showing symptoms of some complex diseases as well. So there are ways that these can be created in a healthy way. And uh, uh, there are uh, if this particular thing is that I need to make better decisions. So there are people who can teach you that how decision making is done, right? So we have Farah Salim here, who is a very excellent coach who can help you to align the decision making centers of the body and make a good decision and not to make decisions from a place of emotions, because emotions are valid but not at the expense of rationality. It's a decision making center, so align it with our values, center it and tune it. We can actually control our brain by thinking what we want, like rewire our brain. Yeah. So brain has this concept of neuroplasticity. It can change when we give it new experiences, when we train it and rewire it. So the brain is very plastic. Allah Ta'ala has given us the potential to rewire it. So yes, it helps. How should we communicate with a prospect, especially when it is difficult to have meetings, so that you can get to know each other before making a decision for marriage? So again, this question is outside of my expertise, but meetings should not happen without a wali, which is the male member of your family. And even if it is happening on a digital place, the wali should be present. It protects us from a lot of damage. Um, and there are decision making process courses and sessions that can be done uh, so that you know yourself before you decide to know somebody else. And then you take the meeting ahead. However, it is important that the male member is present and you not do it alone, because the world is, we have all the matrimonial apps, which are actually now becoming dating sites because of this very reason. I know that my answers are not sufficient, but I'm only telling what I know and not answering which, is beyond my expertise. I hope you can understand. Inshallah, then, I think we are done. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for joining. Allah Ta'ala bless you. Wa akhiru
Um,
da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.